Hello YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. My name is Ben and I'm up here on our off-grid property in the mountains of Virginia. Winter's approaching and we need to start getting some things ready. So one thing you'll get to see us do in this video is start to knock down our garden and prep it for the winter. Cover it with compost and mulch and things like that. But we also need to get the rest of the fruit off of the pear tree. So stick around and you'll get to see all of the stuff that we've prepared, at least for this week, for the winter. To start off the process to prepare our garden for the growing season next year, I'm going to remove our okra plants. We barely got any food from these plants, at least compared to what we were getting from our 12-foot tall okra plants over in Raleigh from our last garden. But that can be expected because we didn't arrive here until June, and up at the top of the mountain here, there's a very short growing season anyway. So hopefully next year we can get an earlier start on any of these summer crops, including okra. I tried to pull the okra out by the roots, but they're too well embedded, so I had to cut them off as low as possible with some hand pruners. While I was down there with the pruners, I decided to remove all of the corn too, even though it was much easier to pull out of the ground. So now that stuff's done, and Angie is continuing to do some tidying. You can see her over near the compost pile. She's also pulling up some weeds and stakes and removing the rocks from the middle of the field area to the perimeter where we have a small stone wall to kind of define the outer boundaries of our garden. You can see me in the background mowing, and I'm not just mowing for the sake of keeping the grass short. It's really kind of becoming dormant, and there's not really much of a need to mow it anymore this year, but I'm actually using it to collect more organic material for our compost. You can see I'm mowing up near the tree line to collect leaves. The leaves easily get sucked up the grass catcher chute on our lawnmower, and having grass in there too just makes it an even better blend because we essentially have greens and browns, and you'll see in a few minutes that I'm going to actually rake these together, try to mix them up, create an even layer of grass and leaves. And the goal is to eventually cover this so it'll spend all winter long breaking down, becoming a fresh bed of compost for the growing season next spring. Continuing the process, you can see me with the mower way down there. That's over near our pear trees. That's a small patch of grass under the trees that I don't actually maintain because the grass rarely grows tall enough to worry about. But because there is still some grass there and a ton of leaves from all of the nut trees and different things down there, I decided to go down several times, do a quick loop that fills up the grass catcher completely with leaves, then I just bring it back up here to dump. I probably repeated that process 4 or 5 times down in that little area until I cleared out the whole patch of grass, and I can tell you, as future editing Ben, that it only took a couple days for that entire area to get filled back with leaves again. So before you complain that we're destroying a habitat for wintering bugs and toads and things like that, the clearing only lasted for a couple days, so don't worry about it. So while we prepare for the winter season here on the homestead, so are the honeybees. You can see here the bees are stocking up on the sugars from our composted pears, and hopefully they get all they need to survive the winter. Despite the frost in the morning, we're still having 70-degree days here where we can come out and enjoy some nice warm family time. So before I have to run out to physical therapy to work on my back, we're going to try to squeeze in a few minutes of a final pear harvest. Our pear tree behind me, you can see it's really bowing over because this tree's never really been maintained. Maybe this winter, once it goes dormant, I can prune it a bit, but that bend is caused by the amount of weight by all those pears. Some of these pears are massive, but right now we need to get these pears off the tree, and I even brought a little 8-foot ladder to try to get up and knock some of those pears off the top. So let's get started. So Angie and Cedar were walking right behind me, but I did get down here a couple minutes early to set up the ladder before they arrived. And I'm glad that happened because as soon as my shoulders touched the branch, an avalanche of pears fell down all around me. And that was the trend for this entire harvest. Anytime I would try to pick a pear off of a branch, several of them would fall. I'm trying to prevent that so they don't get too bruised and dinged by hitting the ladder and hitting the ground. So I'm handing them down one by one to Angie, who's then putting them into a 5-gallon bucket. We did fill up that 5-gallon bucket, so here is a close-up. We're very excited to have this many, so maybe we can make some pear butter.
Today I'm doing some mushroom log maintenance. This oak log we inoculated with mushroom mycelium. It was reishi mushroom a few months ago, and we've got to take care of it and make sure that it's, has a good start, and we want it to give us mushrooms. So it hasn't rained here in a while. The remnants of Hurricane Helene came through and dumped a lot of water in this region, but since then it's been dry and there's no rain in the forecast either. So I'm going to soak this in water overnight. That's what the instructions say to do. And then also, as you may be able to see, this thing's supposed to be in deep shade, and it was this summer, but all of these trees have dropped their leaves and the canopy's really opened up. So I need to find a shady place for it to go for the rest of the winter at least. And then I was thinking about putting it under this table. I thought that would be pretty shady, but then I realized it's not going to get rainwater under there. So we have this evergreen shrub back here. It's called rhododendron, and I may be able to stick it under there. The rhododendron or the laurel, both of them will stay evergreen, and they're pretty dense. So I'm gonna head down the hill and put it in water. We're using water from our rain barrel. It's rainwater.
We got the inoculated log down under this plant. Angie says since it's the north side of the plant, it's going to be more shaded. We have it back on those same riser logs that we had to try to keep it from getting contaminated with local mushrooms that are already in the ground. One of the next tasks we need to do to prepare our homestead for the winter is to go through some of these more natural overgrown areas that I've left as a habitat. But our mower is not really a suitable tool for that because there's so many trees, especially in our area. We have wild tulip trees that tend to grow up inside of those weeds, and it's too difficult to know exactly where they are. And I'm worried about our blades on the riding mower getting stuck in there, even though the blades are brand new. So we got a hold of this earthquake walk behind string-mower, which is like a big industrial weed whacker. And since it has strings, if it hits something hard enough that it can't cut through, that string's just going to bounce off. If the string breaks, we can replace it. Much lower stakes and lower risk than the mower. So I'm going to try to get this unboxed and fired up so then we can give it a try and have the ultimate experiment this winter, mowing down all of our fields. So here's my first impressions of the earthquake walk-behind string mower. It fired up pretty well. Assembly was a breeze because it was actually like 99% assembled. All I had to do was put oil and gas in there and fire it up. But the strings that it came with were actually pretty crappy. These neon orange ones all broke in that first patch of grass. And you don't really have a good cue to know what the condition is of the strings in the mower until they break off and then you actually see that you're not actually cutting anything anymore. I didn't actually review the manual to make sure that I was putting these on correctly, but there only seemed to be one obvious way to do it. So I kind of did like a weird little pretzel-shaped knot where both ends of each of the whacker wires are pushing out. One thing I noticed, there's a bit of a metal blade attached to the side of the deck, and I think that's designed to automatically cut your strings to the appropriate length. These neon orange ones that are included are ideal in color because you can actually find those pieces after you cut through your grass and go and collect them. We don't want a bunch of plastic lying around, so that's important to us. But because I ran through all of those orange ones that it came with, we had to resort to a secondary pack that was purchased. So those ones are a lot harder to find, but they're also more durable, and they were not splitting nearly as easily as those orange ones. So Earthquake, if you're listening, I would either beef up the orange ones or just simply do not include them because the ones that we received were very bad. So moving on, you can see I made short work of this little patch. It really wasn't that big, but because the diameter of the cutting pattern that this produces is pretty small, it took me several passes to get through. So now for the real challenging part, which is next to our gravel driveway. This is something that I've had trouble maintaining with our riding mower because the level of the grass can vary greatly from the level of the gravel. And with all the ruts and the humps that get produced as we drive on it, it makes everything even more unpredictable. So I'm very worried about using a riding mower because I really don't want to mess up our new blades on the gravel. And anytime I hit one of those humps, that's exactly what's going to happen. So to play it safe, I'm using this string mower. I'm starting on the grassy side by the fence, and then as I kind of clear myself somewhere to stand, then I'm turning it perpendicular, facing the driveway, and then just kind of rotating it back and forth to hover those string blades over the gravel. I'm not actually touching them, but that allows me to kind of angle the cut pattern down and cut away all of the blackberry bushes, rose bushes, and anything else that might be overgrowing our driveway. This is our first winter here, so I'm sure we're going to find a lot more projects to prepare everything for spring and the growing season next year. We're going to have to prune a lot of our trees, and hopefully we can buy some fruit trees to get planted. We also have to try to cover the garden a bit more to suppress weeds and to break down our compost, which is right now just a mulch consisting of grass and leaves. So if you want to see any of that stuff, let us know down in the comments. Go ahead and subscribe, and we will see you back here next time on Kind Heart Homestead. Thanks for watching.